Hey, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores. I already did the Jamin Davis breakdown analysis and why that actually was an underrated pick at 19th overall. You can go check that out in my previous video. But today, this video right now, I want to take a look at some of the guys we should definitely go and try to go get in day 2 of the draft. We have 1 second-round pick and 2 third-round picks. 51st overall, 74th overall, and 82nd overall. So from 51 to 82, we'll be making 3 picks. So it's going to be pretty fun. 3 picks within 32 picks worth of range. That's going to be a really fun time for us, and I'm expecting us to hit on a lot of good players because at this point, we don't have any glaring issues. I feel like future quarterback is definitely a big problem, but that's not a 2021 issue per se. And all of the guys that I wanted are gone. I'm not very high on any of these later round guys. But now that we've solved linebacker, we still need a free safety, which is some of the prospects I'm gonna highlight. But when in doubt, we can end up getting a Trey Boston or Malik Hooker as the super break glass in case of emergency, even though I do feel like we're gonna take a safety in the 2nd or 3rd round today. But at the end of the day, we're going best player available. We have no glaring weaknesses. Our offensive line is solid. Cornelius Lucas, you may consider our biggest weakness on the offensive line, and he's solid. I like Cornelius Lucas. He's not Trent Williams, but not many guys are. And I definitely feel like Cornelius Lucas is closer to Trent Williams than the worst starting left tackle in the NFL. I like him. I think he's right in the middle. We pretty much solved linebacker with Jamin Davis, but there's still some linebackers we may take a look at as well in the 2nd or 3rd round that will potentially make our linebacker core go from one of our biggest weaknesses to potentially one of our strengths. I mean, we honestly can just go best player available. That's why I love how we approached free agency last season, how we approached free agency this offseason, and it set us up after taking linebacker in the 1st round to literally just go best player available for the rest of these picks. No glaring holes, no glaring weaknesses. I wouldn't necessarily say we're literally the Buccaneers, but there's nowhere where you're like, oh man, this is an emergency. Unlike linebacker, future quarterback, and you can argue tight end too, because who knows what Sammis Ray is. And we're going to talk about some tight ends as well. Let's get it. Lot of ridiculously talented players still left. First up, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who a lot of people could have sworn would have went in the 1st round. I thought he would too. I'm a little surprised that he made it out of the 1st round. I see the logic behind it because he's basically just purely a will linebacker. Jamin Davis can potentially play Sam, Mike, and Will. He's more versatile. He has a way higher ceiling. He fits exactly what we wanted. So I understand why we passed on JOK, and I'm also understanding why a lot of other teams are like, hey man, I mean, he's great at what he does, but he can't do a lot of things. Being a pure will linebacker does not make you a high commodity. I mean, granted, he can move into like the slot and like sub packages and things like that. But with him having linebacker attached to his name, he's just not built to do anything Mike-wise. And with this projection, it's going to be hard for him to play in nickel. It's going to be hard for him to play in a 3-4 defense. Anytime it's not 2 more linebackers on the field with JOK, I feel like he may potentially struggle. And that's why he's still available here. But if he makes it to the 51st pick, and honestly, even if we wanted to put something together to trade up for him, I think it'd be worth it somewhere early in the 2nd round because he's arguably day 1 the best coverage linebacker in this draft. I feel like Jamin Davis, again, potential-wise, may surpass him because I don't believe JOK is just shutting down the Travis Kelce's, the Kyle Pitts, and things like that. Not to the extent that a Jamin Davis can and will. And did in college. I mean, he covered Kyle Pitts arguably better than anybody did last year. Jamin Davis did better than pretty much every linebacker and every DB that even tried to cover Kyle Pitts last season. So you see the potential there. But JOK is more of a weak side linebacker, cover your running backs, cover your slot receivers and things like that. I feel like JOK can potentially cover all of them. The big Travis Kelce's, the little JD McKissicks, the Kadarius Toney if necessary, because that's who the Giants just took. So we need to be aware of that. I feel like JOK can pretty much only cover the Kadarius Toneys and the JD McKissicks, the 3rd down backs, the pass catching backs. Again, whereas Jamin Davis has the potential to cover all of that along with the bigger guys like a Travis Kelce or a Dallas Goedert and Evan Ingram to be NFC East specific twice a year. But to have both of them would potentially take our linebacker group going into this draft from being one of our biggest weaknesses to arguably one of our biggest strengths. Right now, defensive line is easily our biggest strength. You could argue secondary might be second, especially if we get one of these safeties I'm going to talk about soon. And then I'd probably go receiving group, especially with the potential that we have. And I feel like we're going to at least draft one or two guys to add to it. And I'm pretty sure the guys we add are going to be pretty good. I feel like our running back group is talented, but it would be nice to add another guy. And I feel like our offensive line is underrated. So honestly, linebacker could go from one of our biggest weaknesses to one of our biggest strengths. Still need a tight end too, but we're also going to discuss that later. But yeah, man, JOK somehow today, later on today, is a home run hitter. I mean, I thought he honestly was going to go to the Raiders at, I believe, 16 or 17. Like, I mean, it just seemed like it was meant to be. Yeah, 17th overall. They ended up not taking JOK, who their name was attached to for the past couple of weeks pretty heavy. So I wouldn't be surprised if they take him this round. If you want JOK, you're going to have to trade up over the Raiders, period. Next up, you have safety Trevon Merrick, and definitely the best overall safety in this class and also one of the highest ceilings out of this safety class, and I would love to get him. He's very versatile. He can cover slot receivers. He can play single high free safety. He can step up and make plays in the box. He's a decent open field tackler. Actually, decent is a little harsh. He's pretty good. I wouldn't say good or great, but he's right below that. And he's like an ace in special teams. And as you know, Ron Rivera couldn't help but talk about Jamin Davis's character. He loves Terry McLaurin's character. He loves Chase Young's. He loves Jonathan Allen's character and leadership. And with Trevon Merrick being a special teams coverage ace, one of those guys that's just an elite special teams player, along with how well he can contribute as a starting safety in this league, Pro Bowl potential, you know that's a guy that Ron Rivera and company love. And there were rumors that we were heavily interested in Jamin Davis leading up to the draft like this past week. Trevon Merrick started to also catch a lot of steam for us, so I wouldn't be surprised if they not only try to get him but also trade up to get him, maybe throwing like a 4th round pick to move up enough spots and get him. I would not be surprised. And Trevon Merrick again is the best overall safety. He may not be the best pure rangy center fielder free safety, which I feel like we need the most, but he's really good at that and also good at other things. And if we want versatility on the back end, he's your guy. And also high upside. I feel like they're more likely to go high upside with defensive picks because this defense is already really good. We were 3rd statistically last year out of the entire NFL. So if you take guys with high upside, but also with higher floors than what people give them credit for, this is the best situation for him. With this pass rush, with this defensive line, with these corners, Jamin Davis and Trevon Merrick would go to the best situations possible. You can argue the Buccaneers have a better overall defense, but Trevon Merrick wouldn't be a premier player in it just yet. Here, he would start day one. So if I'm Trevon Merrick, if I'm Jamin Davis, the Burgundy and Gold are literally the perfect team to have the most success on and definitely to compete for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think Jamin Davis is honestly a favorite. We've seen analysts everywhere say that Jamin Davis is a favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Matt Miller, few other guys that have no ties to the Burgundy and Gold, just pure draft analysts, pure team analysts. And I feel like Trevon Merrick can honestly give Jamin Davis a run for his money on this team, honestly. Switching it up, going to receiver, Elijah Moore, very underrated. Fairly undersized slot receiver, and that's pretty much the only reason he's made this far, because this tape shows 1st round capability. He has the talent, his burst, his route running, the hands, top end speed. I mean, he's just an elite yards after catch guy. I mean, Ole Miss just been putting out guys. DK Metcalf and AJ Brown, now Elijah Moore. And they're all different. DK Metcalf is just a freak, I don't know what planet he came from guy. AJ Brown is a linebacker playing receiver, just out here deboing people. And then Elijah Moore is that Deshaun Jackson type of guy. So, hey man, we don't have a definitive slot receiver exactly. Curtis Samuel can excel in the slot. That's where he's played his best. But he also is versatile enough to play X, Y, and Z and to actually line up out of the backfield as a running back, as Scott Turner has done with him before. So Curtis Samuel should be allowed to go everywhere. But if we don't have a certified slot receiver to start, because who knows if Adam Humphries is even going to be healthy enough to truly play, then Curtis Samuel's probably going to be held captive to the slot a lot more than he should be if we don't have a true slot guy to take over that slot position. Elijah Moore would be that if we want to go that route. There's also Tevin Jenkins, who I'm not a big fan of. Just, kind of short arms. He's projected to be a tackle, but he could also play guard pretty well. He's like versatile, but it's kind of like a jack of all trades and a master of none type of thing. And I feel like we already have that with Sadiq Charles, but with more potential. I like Sadiq Charles' talent at guard and tackle more than I like a Tevin Jenkins. Sadiq Charles, again, only went in the 4th round because of character concerns. We just need to get him back healthy. I doubt we go this route, but my Georgia boy, Azeez Ojulari, not a very high ceiling compared to like Kwity Paye and Gregory Rousseau. But if we're talking about just day one, who has the best one move? You're talking about one go-to move. You give every edge rusher in this class one play to get a sack. Just one. You don't get an entire game, you just get one play. Azeez Ojulari is the guy that you would put money on to win that play. Period. Out of all of these guys, if he only has one snap, because his best move is better than anybody else's best move, he's just not as versatile and he doesn't have as much athletic upside as these other guys. But you never know. We don't have edge rusher depth. Maybe we call up Ryan Kerrigan at the end of this draft, re-sign him for cheap. I would actually love that move. And I love Azeez Ojulari. I love my Georgia guys, but I feel like edge rusher depth is not important enough to go as Azeez Ojulari this high. But I would be surprised, but I wouldn't think it's impossible. Another problem with Azeez Ojulari is that he's more of a 3-4 outside linebacker than a 4-3 defensive end. But Jack Del Rio has shown that towards the end of last season and going into that Bucks game, he likes to run 5 defensive linemen when he can. And Jamin Davis, with how versatile and freakishly athletic he is, will allow us to run more 5 defensive linemen, run more nickel, and just be one of the only 2 linebackers out there holding it down. That's the flexibility that a Jamin Davis gives you. So we could actually pick up 3-4 outside linebacker type of guys if we want to for those specific things. But yeah, that's pretty high, first of all, just in general for anybody to take pretty much a situational pass rusher. I don't really see Azeez Ojulari being great against the run. I feel like I've talked about him too long already because it's just not really worth getting him at this point. You also have Asante Samuel Jr. His film is ridiculous. Even his advanced statistics are ridiculous. My only problem with him is that he's little. And that's what's hurting Jimmy Moreland right now, because Jimmy Moreland's tape was great. But being a little guy, it just hurts you when you get to the NFL level. Maybe Asante Samuel Jr., first of all, has gone against way better competition than Jimmy Moreland did, attending James Madison, whereas Asante Samuel Jr. played for Florida State. And then he's more instinctive and a higher IQ type of corner than a Jimmy Moreland. So I can see Asante Samuel Jr. balling out in a specific situation at the NFL level. I feel like he's not good enough to go to every team, but I think he's going to end up being pretty good. And he plays bigger than his size. He's little, but he plays bigger than that, but I'm just not sure how that's going to necessarily translate to the NFL level. So I have a little restraint for Asante Samuel Jr., but I would not be surprised if he ends up being a Pro Bowl level corner, because everything is there on tape. It's just whether or not it will translate to the NFL level when he's going against better and bigger and more athletic receivers. You have offensive tackle Dylan Radune's Trey Lance's teammate. He's a really, really good athlete at the offensive tackle position. And I feel like with his athleticism, his footwork, and his mobility and things like that, he would be great for zone running schemes and climbing the second level and things like that. So if they want to go offensive tackle, honestly, I may prefer Dylan Radune's over Tevin Jenkins. But I don't prioritize offensive tackle anywhere near enough to skip over linebacker or safety, or even tight end. My boy, Jabril Cox, up next. Linebacker, man. I love him. I mocked us getting him back before the 2020 draft. Like, I really love Jabril Cox, but back then I thought we may be able to get him in like the 5th round. Then he went back to college another year, transferred to LSU, and then he had the nerve to get a pick 6 in his first game. And I already knew after that, I was like, oh yeah, it's over with. We're not getting him. He's going in the 1st or 2nd round. We have no chance of getting him and things like that. So I was a little upset. I was happy for him, but I was upset overall because it just decreased his odds of coming to us. But he's still an option there. And I would not be surprised if he makes it to the 51st overall pick. Like I spoke about in my draft guide video, he's one of them high character guys, captain of the team everywhere he went in DSU and LSU. Wouldn't be surprised if Ron Rivera doesn't take him, with that being a heavy influence on it. Again, Trevon Merrick, Jabril Cox, even JOK are these high character, crazy work ethic, leaders of the defense, hard worker type of guys. Not afraid to get their hands dirty type of guys. So I'm pretty sure we have our eyes on all of them. Unless they feel like the linebacker position is good enough with Cole Holcomb and Jamin Davis, I wouldn't be surprised if we targeted Jabril Cox or JOK. And Jabril Cox is basically like a JOK. Really good in coverage. I would say he's a smarter coverage player than JOK, but JOK is probably a slightly better athlete, but Jabril Cox is still a ridiculous athlete, but JOK is probably a little bit quicker and faster. A little bit. Again, Jabril Cox is still very, very athletic, very rangy, and he's stronger and heavier than a JOK. He's an entire 11 pounds and 1 inch taller than a JOK. So he has a little bit more Mike linebacker upside, more versatile, what we're looking for, being able to play both Mike and Will potentially type of linebacker in him than a JOK. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially since JOK is assumed to go before him. I could see Jabril Cox being a far more realistic option. And again, he brings that captain of the defense type of leadership with him. I would not be surprised. I would be surprised if they don't love him. Whether we get him or not, I don't know, but I'd be shocked if they don't love him. I mean, they interviewed him before the draft and everything. Then you have safety Andre Cisco, and he may be the best just pure free safety in this class. Like, he can't really do much else. Don't expect him to contribute in the run game, make plays in the box. And like, unlike Trevon Merrick and Javon Holland, who have experience like covering the slot and just, man covering in general, Andre Cisco is literally just a ball hawking, very rangy, very lengthy free safety. I mean, literally basically like a Trey Boston. A younger Trey Boston, maybe with a little bit higher upside, but just like Trey Boston, don't expect him to contribute much in the run game. Don't expect him to make open field tackles, and don't expect him to man cover anybody. But if you just need somebody to be that center fielder on the back end by himself, single high, and allow everybody else on the defense to play on the second and front line, and let him just control the third level by himself, which makes you so flexible on defense, Andre Cisco is your guy. But you could definitely get Andre Cisco later than you would be able to get a Trevon Merrick or a Javon Holland, because again, he's not as versatile as those guys at all. Like, it's not even close. Those other guys, Trevon Merrick and Javon Holland, can literally cover slot receivers, maybe even cover wide receivers sometimes, and step up and make plays in the box if they have to. Andre Cisco is just literally pure free safety Trey Boston. Safety Richie Grant is also an option. Another like free safety guy that can make plays in the box. Rondale Moore is also an option, the receiver from Purdue. Basically Elijah Moore, but just not as good. Definitely not as polished in my opinion. I like Elijah Moore more, but maybe Rondale Moore slides to somewhere in the third round where you're comfortable taking him. Plus, Elijah Moore is 5'10" with all of that speed and agility. Rondale Moore is 5'7", but they both come with punt and kick return ability, which we need. We do not have a designated returner right now that can make plays in the return game and flip field positions that way, because we already have Tress Way. He's the GOAT. We have that on kickoffs and punts, but as far as the return game, we don't have somebody to flip field position on that side. And Rondale Moore and Elijah Moore could both be that. There's also other options for that later in the draft, like my boy Avery Williams, who I feel like we may be able to get in the 5th round or later, but we'll see. And according to this big board, they have Javon Holland after Richie Grant, Andre Cisco, and Trevon Merrick. And I would argue, to me, the two best safeties in this class are Javon Holland and Trevon Merrick. So I don't know why this ESPN big board has Javon Holland so far back, but I love Javon Holland. I feel like he's a better pure free safety than Trevon Merrick, but Trevon Merrick is can step up in the box and make a tackle. But I feel like they both can do both of those very well. I feel like both of them have the potential to be deep single high free safeties, can cover somebody in man coverage if they need to. Javon Holland's better suited to probably cover bigger receivers and tight ends, whereas Trevon Merrick is better suited to cover smaller receivers, slot receivers, and guys like that. But either way, I feel like they can all do the same thing. They have generally the same skill set. I just feel like Javon Holland's a slightly better free safety and can cover the bigger guys better in man coverage, versus Trevon Merrick, who can step up in the box and make a play better against the run and can cover slot receivers and the shifty guys better. So, I mean, it's really up to which one you want. Either way, both of them are really good. They're both really athletic. I feel like at the end of the day, though, Trevon Herrick has the higher upside. I feel like he has the highest upside. I feel like he has the best blend of upside and high floor out of this class. I feel like Javon Holland and Trevon Merrick both have high floors, but Trevon Merrick has a slightly higher upside, slightly higher ceiling. You also have tight end Pat Freiermuth, pretty solid tight end. Dwayne Eskridge, another one of those explosive Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore type of receivers, very bursty, could be our slot guy and return guy of the future. My boy Iffy Melifonwu, I've talked about him in several mock drafts. I love Iffy Melifonwu. His potential is crazy. At 6'3", 205 pounds, you could argue he has some of the highest upside out of any corner in this draft class. To me, The best way to describe him is a faster Jimmy Smith. And imagine a faster Jimmy Smith covering the number 2s because we already have William Jackson covering the number 1s. And with his size, he would be perfect on this team because William Jackson, with his ridiculous speed, I mean, Terry McLaurin, William Jackson, and Curtis Samuel are generally going to be the fastest people on the field any given game. And Iffy Melifonwu also has speed, but at that size, so let William Jackson say we go against the Buccaneers, cover Chris Godwin, let Iffy Melifonwu shut down on Mike Evans. Potentially. Still has some room to grow, still has some instinct things to work out, some IQ things, the mental side of things, the technique side of things. But his blend of length, size, speed, strength is ridiculous, and he could be an excellent press corner, especially for us if we develop him right. And he has great ball skills. He played receiver in high school and it shows in his tape. And his ability to high point the ball, to actually go up and catch it, his ball skills are ridiculous. Some of the best ball skills in this corner class. And again, also some of the highest upside out of any corner in this class. And then you add his ridiculous length to that jump ball ability, he's gonna be pass defense god, especially if we take him and he's covering the number 2 receivers. Oh yeah, it's over with. My boy Quinn Miners, man, this is my boy. We traded for Eric Flowers, so I think this is highly unlikely, but I would argue Quinn Miners has some of the highest upside out of any offensive lineman in this draft. I mean, between Penei Sewell, Elijah Vera-Tucker, Quinn Miners, they're easily 3 of the top 5 with the most upside. Quinn Miners just coming from Wisconsin Whitewater, a very small school, not against a lot of great competition. So of course he's gonna have some technique issues. He wasn't coached well. He has a lot of mental things that he needs to work on. But when he went to the Senior Bowl, he dominated. He showed that he belongs in the NFL. And again, his upside is crazy. I mean, literally Quentin Nelson type of upside. I'm not saying he's going to be Quentin Nelson. I'm not guaranteeing that because he's one of the best guards, arguably the best guard in the NFL. We had an offseason last season, but still, like, I don't want to say he's going to be all pro guard just right out the gate. But the upside is there. I mean, there are a lot of good guards in this draft, but they don't have Quentin Nelson upside. They may have a higher floor, but just physically and based on their traits and projection wise, no, Quinn Miners is that guy. I mean, he could end up being a top 3 offensive lineman out of this class if he goes to the right situation and gets coached up well. Of course, you have the quarterbacks like Davis Mills, Kellen Mond, Kyle Trask, all of those guys. We're more attached to Davis Mills and Kyle Trask than Kellen Mond. And if I had to choose any of these guys, I'd take Davis Mills over Kyle Trask easily. But especially as a developmental guy, I comp him to, if he reaches his potential, he's Ryan Tannehill, but that's not like Justin Fields, Trey Lance type of potential. He has potential, he has pretty high upside, but it's more of like a Ryan Tannehill type of thing, who's a really good quarterback, but not a Pat Mahomes, not a Lamar Jackson, not a Russell Wilson, not a Kyler Murray type of guy. He's fairly limited in that way, but he does have pretty high upside in my opinion. But again, I don't really want either of these guys. I feel like best player available is probably a linebacker, tight end, or safety in this entire day 2. But if we end up taking any of those guys, it'd probably be Davis Mills for me. And a lot of people don't like him that much for some odd reason, but I'm a huge Tommy Tremble fan. Tight end from Notre Dame. I keep comping him to George Kittle because it's the exact same situation. I keep talking about this in all of my mock drafts, and every time I talk about Tommy Tremble, love him, bruh. First of all, he's versatile. I mean, he was like an H-back at times, so kind of like the Chris Cooley role, but he's not even like little like that. He's 6'3", 241, but he just has that versatility to him. But he has ridiculous upside, just like George Kittle. Again, same exact situation. Terrible quarterback play. I mean, bad quarterback play. Bad offensive coordinator that doesn't know how to utilize them. But when they are used, they flash very brightly. I feel like Tommy Tremble has a lot of blocking upside. I mean, he can line up as an inline tight end, and right now he's winning basically just off of strength. But if you coach him up and get his technique better, he could probably be one of the better blockers of this entire NFL from the inline tight end perspective. The potential is there for that. And most importantly, his pass catching potential is crazy. He has some serious upside, some really good athleticism. But again, just like George Kittle, bad quarterback play. So even when he was open, didn't necessarily mean he was going to get the ball and show what he could do. And also the offensive coordinator just didn't know how to use him, didn't use him much. I don't know why. But literally George Kittle made it to the 5th round in his draft. I feel like if Tommy Tremble's there with our 2nd, 3rd round pick, you gotta take him. I don't even want to risk him possibly sliding to the 4th, especially since he can also contribute in special teams. I feel like once he's able to get his hands right and gets coached up on some better technique as far as route running and blocking, oh yeah, George Kittle type of potential, for real. The flashes are that bright to me. Also, my boy Hamsah Nasirildeen is also a potential pick here at safety. If they don't want to get one of those guys that has a higher floor, you could potentially get a Hamsah Nasirildeen. And a lot of people basically see him as Derwin James, like a strong safety outside linebacker type of build. I mean, literally the same type of athleticism and things like that, length and all of that. And he's also had a lot of experience literally just man covering. Like, he can man cover, he can do all of that type of stuff. He just needs to improve on his instincts and all of the mental parts, all of the technique parts. I mean, that's the part of this draft that we're in. A lot of high upside guys that need to work on the technique and mental parts of the game, the IQ, the awareness, the instincts, and things like that. Hamsah Nasirildeen is basically the same thing, but at safety. I feel like he could end up being a really rangy free safety, but a lot of people with his size see him being literally like a Derwin James. But his biggest problem is that he had back-to-back severe leg injuries, and you're not entirely too sure if he's gonna ever bounce back and be his 2019 self, where it literally looked like he was a Derwin James clone, but just with better man coverage skills. He had those back-to-back leg injuries, and I was worried about him, but then he went to the Senior Bowl and showed a little bit of what he looked like before those injuries. So if he keeps that progression, and if he's able to stay healthy, he could potentially literally be Derwin James that can man cover. Like, I mean, the potential is there. You just got to worry about him getting healthy. And of course, it's a guy you may have to develop. I don't see him starting right away, but he could easily play in sub packages right now. And again, I think he has the potential to be a really rangy free safety if that's where you want to play him. And there's a lot of other possibilities out there. I mean, there's a lot of Georgia guys: Trey McKitty, Monty Rice, DJ Daniel, Ben Cleveland, my boy Richard LeCount. I don't love any of these guys, honestly. A lot of them just have a lot of, like Tyson Campbell, Trey McKitty. These are guys with high upside, but you don't know what you're getting at all. Like, we talk about Iffy Melifonwu having like a we don't know floor to him, a little bit of bust, but like my boy Tyson Campbell, bro, you don't know. Athletic freak, but man, I'm not really high on any of these Georgia guys, but I am excited about a lot of them getting drafted in this 2nd to 4th round range. I feel like a lot of them will get scooped up in this range, and I'm happy for them, but I don't necessarily want them for my burgundy and gold. I really don't like either of them. I mean, Tyson Campbell, elite traits, 5-star, literally the #1 corner out of his class for a reason. The potential is there. He could just never put it together. Who knows if he'll be able to do it at the NFL level? We'll see. But again, I prefer all of the guys that I've listed before than any of my Georgia guys. So that's saying something. Love my Georgia Bulldogs, but the burgundy and gold are priority. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please like it if you learned anything. Please subscribe if you haven't. Hit the bell next to the description button so you get a notification every time I release an informative and opinionated video like this one. Please get in the comment section and let me know how you feel about everything I spoke about, all of the players that I named. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Who are some of your sleepers that you want in the 2nd and 3rd rounds? Remember, we have a 2nd round pick and 2/3. We have 3 picks within a 32 pick range, so this is going to be really fun tonight. Of course, I'm live streaming rounds 2 and 3 today, just like I streamed round 1 yesterday, so make sure y'all pull up for that. Of course, man, I really appreciate all the support, man. Videos are going crazy. Make sure y'all support everybody, not just me. All of the burgundy and gold YouTubers and content creators, man. We've all been putting in work, and this is a fun time. Y'all already know me, man. I'm GM, I'm scout, I'm team builder guy. I love this type of stuff: high school recruiting, watching film, scouting players, watching players development, projections, all of this type of stuff. I love this and trying to fit players with their best teams, because I care about what every team does, not just the burgundy and gold. So this season right now, where we're at right now, is more fun to me than football on Sunday. So I'm your guy for that. But like I said, make sure you support everybody, because everybody's been putting in work, man. I appreciate everybody out there. But of course, man, big shouts out to everybody that donates, man. Really appreciate all y'all. Big shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now. I really appreciate all y'all. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.